I just bought a 1985 Toyota pickup turned rock crawler. I got a crazy good deal. I'm super pumped, but there's a really big catch. It doesn't run, and it's kind of a giant pile of garbage. But let's get into why I decided to buy somebody else's project that's been used, abused, and rock crawled really hard, what I plan to do with it, and how I plan to get it back on the road. I actually picked this truck up local to me, and as soon as I saw it in person, I knew it was a project I was willing to take on, and I was super excited about it. It's got a lot of really cool parts under it that I'm really excited to work with. It is a 22 RE fuel injected, mated to a 5-speed manual transmission with dual transfer cases with stock gears. It is on 37-inch tires. It has got 529 gears front and rear. It is spooled front and rear, not welded. It has true locked spools front and rear. It's got 6-shooter knuckles with full hydraulic steering up front. The rear is a trail gear rock assault axle housing with disc brakes, and this thing is sweet. It's got a lot of really good parts on it. The bed has been removed, the doors have been removed, and it has got a full exo cage. The running gear of this truck is super duper solid. It's been proven, and I'm stoked to have dual cases, 529 gears, a rock assault rear housing, and a super beefed up Toyota 8-inch front. I also think there might possibly be internals in the front and rear axles, but I don't know for sure, and I won't know until I crack them open to reseal them, because they are both leaking pretty bad. So now let's get into why this thing was cheap and why it's kind of a heaping pile of garbage. For starters, this thing is ugly. It's real ugly. The cage isn't pretty, the paint isn't pretty, the bodywork isn't pretty, there's no windshield, there's no doors, there's no dash, no interior, no heater, no blower motor. It doesn't run. The wiring on the interior is very questionable, which is nothing new. The seats in it are garbage. There's no bed. The fuel pump turns on with the key. The cooling fan turns on with the key. I'm sure there's more, but really, in essence, what it boils down to is this thing is a rat's nest of a wiring harness that needs to be completely redone. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and get this thing running. I got it on the trailer by the previous owner said if you hot wire the cold start injector, you can get it to run, which is true. It has fuel pressure, it'll just spray fuel into the intake, and it will, in essence, carburate itself and run, and it drove onto the trailer. So that was awesome. I didn't have to winch it onto the trailer, which would have been a pain in the butt with the full hydraulic steering. But I want to get this thing actually properly running, so I'm going to address the engine wiring harness. So the entire wiring harness, because they really cut pretty much everything else out. And what I mean by they pretty much cut everything else out is there's these wires going to the ECU, and then there's a few wires going to the ignition, and that's it. Everything else is the engine wiring harness and fuel pump wires. So I'm gonna pop the hood of these super awesome hood pins that are like 3/4 inch bolts, and well, hood pin. And we're gonna get a look at this wiring harness and start digging into seeing if we can get this thing running. One of the first things I noticed when I was looking at this wiring is there are only 2 fuses in that fuse box. And I'm pretty sure one of them is going to the fuel pump and one of them is going to the fan, but I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure what anything is going on. All of the wires black. It's all super confusing. Not super stoked about that. But the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trace pretty much every single wire that's already here. I'm gonna figure out what it goes to and why it exists. Then I'm gonna go through all of the engine ECU wiring and make sure it's getting all the information it needs, because it needs power, it needs ignition power, it needs signal from a lot of different sensors and a lot of different things. So I wanna make sure it's getting all the information it needs so that it tells it to start. Because right now, I put a battery in the back and it'll crank and crank and crank. Not sure if you can hear that humming, but both the fan and fuel pump are on all the time if the ignition is on. I've been wiring on this crawler for 2 days now. I got a wiring diagram out, I redid their fuse block so it's actually giving the ECU power. I rewired the mass airflow sensor. I rewired literally everything that was wrong and it still wasn't starting and I couldn't figure it out. Then I went ahead and I just, in a Hail Mary, I had this ECU laying around. I was told it was out of an 88. As you can see, it says 88 Toyota pickup, but this harness is for an 85 to 87, early 88. So it might be an 88, but I wasn't sure if it would work. So I went ahead, I plugged it in, and lo and behold, she fires up. She runs pretty decent, actually. Definitely needs some work, but I'm gonna go ahead and since it runs, I'm gonna start wrapping up all of this ugly wiring, trying to get it looking a little bit better, try to get a little bit more wrapped up, and then maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to back this thing off the trailer. I know it's got a ton more issues, but that's a really good start. All right, and let's see if this thing starts now that I wrapped up some wiring and am in the driver's seat. Woo-hoo. All right, reverse. We're officially driving a rock crawler. Oofda, I think that Burfield's toast. We're back working on the crawler. It's been a couple days since I got it running. I pulled the ECU out of it because we actually got a pretty gnarly snowstorm, but we're gonna get this thing pulled up into the garage and fix a bunch of things that are wrong with it and wrap up a huge amount of the wiring that is just absolutely disgusting. First thing first, we gotta get the ECU in and hook up this battery. And you can see that is also one of the major things I need to fix is this battery. Super awesome, everything. Let's see if she starts up. Oh. Getting in this thing is absolutely atrociously uncomfortable, and these seats are not comfortable at all either. Oh, there we go. One of the first things I really want to address is these wires are all kind of crazy. I need a ground because this is what's grounding. I'm pretty sure everything on the whole thing. This other ground is actually just going to a winch lead up here. There's a power. I'm pulling this off because I don't need this to run the truck and I can remount this another day. And for now, I'm just trying to make this thing run and drive and have leads that don't fall off. So I've got a couple of ends, I've got a couple of lugs. So we're gonna make this wiring a lot cleaner and hopefully put actual terminals on here that aren't gonna fall off. I'm making them long enough to where I can put either side battery in, so it doesn't matter if it's which one direction or the other, which side the posts are on. I'll be able to put a battery in and this thing will just accept it. It's a really important thing when you're building project cars is to make them accept pretty much any battery. It's been sitting for almost a year now since I've owned it and I have not driven it once, not a single time. So we're gonna change that today. It's currently not running, it needs a fuel pump, it needs plug wires, it needs a cap and rotor. The ECU is currently removed. It's got no battery, and I'm sure there's other things that I'm gonna have to figure out along the way. But we're gonna get this thing up and driving so we can take it out wheeling before the wheeling season is over. I bought this thing last year, not running, had major wiring issues. I went ahead, it ended up needing a new ECU, which is why the ECU was removed out of it. I believe the old one was damaged due to having water in the cab because of the lack of windshield and doors. It also has broken hub studs on the front left. So it is currently a 3-wheel drive, not a 4-wheel drive, which is the main reason I haven't driven this, which is stupid because that was a $30 fix. The parts to fix the front hub on this thing were 30 bucks. There's a ton of other issues it has, but in order to get this thing 4-wheel drive, running and driving again, $30. I ended up robbing the fuel pump off of it. I robbed the cap rotor and plug wires off of it, and it's just been kind of abused. So we're gonna jump into this thing and get it going again. Forgot to mention, the cage on this thing is made out of plumbing pipe and is garbage. It's not very well triangulated, and even if it were, normal tubing does not split like that. This cage is anything but safe, so not really actually good for rock crawling. Not to mention, these seats are atrocious, and these harnesses look like I could tug on them and they would break. So this definitely isn't actually set up and ready to do any hardcore rock crawling, but the axles and drivetrain should be ready for it. So all we need to do is figure out everything else, including suspension, because the suspension on this thing is also not great. First thing first, under the hood is I stole the cap and rotor off of this thing for another 22 REA I had laying around that needed it. So we're gonna throw a new set on. I went to the parts store today, got a cap, a rotor, and plug wires so that the engine will be complete again. We've also got a good battery, a good fuel pump, because I stole the fuel pump for another project that I had going on, and the ECU here. So we should have everything to get this thing fired up and pulled out. Just got to throw these on all the plugs, the coil, and the distributor, and then the engine bay should be back together as far as I know. I don't remember taking anything else off, but that doesn't mean I didn't take anything else off. Oh yeah, we got the wires installed. Now it should actually spark. So that's step one. Now we need to get fuel to it. We'll go install the brand new fuel pump I just bought for this thing. This was a carbureted truck originally, so the fuel tank and fuel pump are all kind of janky. It's just got 2 random wires coming out, a line coming out of the tank, and a line going up to the engine, and it was just zip tied to the frame rail here. So naturally, that's what I'm gonna do again just to get this thing running. I'll probably eventually have to do something about that to make it less ghetto, more proficient at, you know, not destroying fuel pumps and just being super exposed. But for now, I'm just trying to get this thing running so I don't have to sit on this stupid shell of a car in order to work on it. There we go. Fuel pump, not so permanently installed, but installed enough that it should start. We're gonna go get the battery, throw it in this thing, and then I think all we have left is to install the ECU and see if she starts up. Fun little jungle gym. Broken S13 is. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna hook up the ECU before I hook the battery up. Don't really know what the logic is there, but it seems safer in my head. And now the battery, which is really easy because you just take the red wire and put it on the ground because it's bolted to the ground. Then you take the other red wire and put it on the positive because it's the positive. You know, logic. I think that's it. Now we just need to put the key in it, see if it starts. Got the key. Let's see if she starts up. I hear the fuel pump and we're not pulling any fuel. So I can go get my gas can, put some gas in this tank. Gas ought to help this situation. It's real hard for engines to run without gas. It's like this cage was designed to put a gas can into the filler neck. Round 2. Let's see if it's picking up any gas. Oh, yep. The filter has fuel in it. They both seem to, which is good because we only had about a gallon of gas in that can. Unfortunately, it's time to evacuate our buddy here. Wow. That was very strong. There you go, buddy. I don't want to hurt you. You go live your life. Not in my truck. Never liked cold starts. It's trying. Oh. Look at that. Oh, she fired up. Doesn't sound super happy, but she's running. Now drop this hood, get this thing pulled out of here so we can start assessing all of those sheared studs in there that we're gonna have to pull out. Ah, this thing is so uncomfortable. These seats are tiny. Oh, I think we're in low. Like low, low. Here, let's see. Two. I think that's high. Yep. She drives. Oh. With 529, she'll roast the rears. We got this thing pulled up to the garage, so now we can fix the front axle. On the passenger side, you can see there are 6 studs holding the hub to the axle. On the driver's side, they're all missing. So I'm gonna start by taking this tire off. Looks like there's a wheel spacer in there. And we're gonna get this hub flange off, get all of the sheared studs out of there. And I have 6 brand new studs we're gonna be putting in to get this thing back in 4-wheel drive instead of 3-wheel drive. Do you even spacer, bro? 3-inch wheel spacers on this thing. No wonder these wheel bearings are a little bit loose. That, and I bet you this thing hasn't been maintenance since freaking 2005. Finally got it apart. These wheel spacers are atrocious. Getting the lug nuts out of the wheel spacers was atrocious. But now we can take this off and start assessing the damage and how bad those studs all are. Well, it's definitely been open for a while because there is a crap load of dirt in there. So I'm probably gonna take everything out, clean it and put it back together. But also, every single one of these studs and the dowel pins are broken below the surface. So that sucks, to say the least. Damn. I'll try an easy out, but I just got a good feeling that an easy out's not gonna be the easiest way to get these out. So I might end up welding to them. I don't know. This looks like it's gonna suck. Oh, that was cool. Look at that. we got all 6 of the studs removed. Some of them came out with just the drill bit, like this one. Some of them I had to easy out, like this one. We got 3 out that just came out with the reverse thread drill bit, and we got the other 3 out with the help of an easy out. But we got all of them out. All 6 of the broken ones are right there, and we've got 6 new studs right here with cone washers and nuts ready to put this back together. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna clean all of this up. There's some like dirt and grime on the bearings just from it being open and being cracked open and having dirt fall in. So we're gonna clean all of that up, repack the bearings on this side, retension the wheel bearing on there, put the 6 new studs in, put the hub flange back on, and we should be back in business with a full 4-wheel drive rock crawler again. After that, we'll be able to take this thing for a cruise, see how it drives, see if we can crawl it a little bit. There's some like rock piles on my property. The other thing I noticed is that after I pulled it where it sits right now, this fuel filter is full of disgusting stuff. So I've got a fuel filter I'm gonna be throwing on it to replace it. And also it's out of gas again pretty much. When you turn the key, it was not pumping fuel through there. I don't know if the pickup tube got clogged with the rust or if it's just that in the 2 minutes it was running, it burned the gallon or so of gas that was already in the tank. So I'm gonna go get some more gas, put the fuel filter on it, and see how it runs with hopefully more gas and a clean fuel filter. But I'm gonna wait till after we get the front hub together to do that. Got all my parts all cleaned up. We've got the bearing packed with new grease. We've got new grease in the hub. And I went ahead and I cleaned off and re-greased the spindle just so that it goes together smooth and everything like that. Now we can throw this thing back together, torque the wheel bearing down because it was loose before there was play in it.
Look incredible, and it's going to be so much. That's over 800 total value when you trade in.
To start on this thing over there, and we're doing at the workbench turn. Be another one that I have around dish. That's what I'm doing. That I have.
Well, I was getting the tire back on the crawler, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get the lug nuts tight. And I figured out that this socket is so worn and this anvil is so worn that combined, they don't really work. So I'm gonna be ordering an anvil for this thing and swapping it out, and probably getting another thin wall non-impact 13/16 or 21 millimeter for lug nuts that fit inside spacers. We went ahead and got some more gas in it because the gas I had put in it wasn't enough, so we got 3 more gallons in it. I also replaced the fuel filter so that it isn't absolutely disgustingly atrocious, and put the battery back in it. So let's make sure this thing starts. Oh, it starts so much better with gas in it. That's awesome. So now, I guess I'm gonna go test the 4-wheel drive and make sure it is all good to go. Don't have a whole lot of like crawling material on my property, but there are a few rock piles that I think I can drive over and just see how it does. We're in 2-wheel drive. Let's see how this thing does. Okay, this thing rips. The speedo works apparently. Small rock hill. Let's, I want to throw it low just to make it not so fast. Oh. Low range definitely works. All right. I think we're flexed out. Let's find out. We're mildly flexed out. Definitely not super flexy. That shock's got not much showing. This ain't a ton of flex, but something. It's not terrible, that's for sure. I think we're gonna try and drive over that. It really doesn't look that gnarly on camera, but it's pretty crazy. Oh, we got a little caught up on something. I don't know if it was the diff or what. This thing makes everything feel easy. Let's see if this is any flex here. Really not that flexy. It's not flexed out, but I just don't think this is enough to make it look flexed out. Are we running out of gas again already? Yep. I think there's so much rust in this tank that it's just clogging the filter. All right, let's take this thing out of low. Let's just go get this thing back to the house. Darn. We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it at least close enough that I can change the filter. That's the goal. It's got like 5 gallons of gas in it, or 4 at least. I don't think it could have possibly burned through 4 gallons of gas in that much time. It's gotta be just a clogged filter. After that itty bitty little drive, we've got that much goop and gunk in our filter. I'd say our tank's probably a little rusty, so I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna pull that filter off, see if I can backflow it with a little bit of brake clean and get it a little bit better, get some of that rust out of there, and at least start sucking more rust up through that filter so we can, I don't know, make it run. I'd say that's an issue. Oh yeah, it doesn't flow backwards without the filter in the way. I am sure this was inhibiting flow. I'm gonna see if I can get this thing to flow a little bit better, because I really don't want to drive 20 minutes round trip for 5 more of these right now. It's getting dark and I want to enjoy this thing a little bit before it gets dark. That's better. There's a ton of rust that came out of it, like a ton. So this tank's probably seen better days. But that's nothing that a 10-pack of filters can't fix. I'll probably buy like an 88 Ford F350 inline fuel filter. They're massive and it'll catch a lot more before it clogs to that point, because this is just like a freaking lawnmower filter that I'm trying to use just so I don't ruin the fuel pump I put on here. And that'll help for sure. But for now, I'm gonna throw this thing back on there and see how much more rust I can catch in the 10 minutes I drive this thing over some rocks over there. Makes me wonder if the cold start issue I've been having on this thing for as long as I've owned it has been super clogged fuel filter. Because the one that was on there was disgusting. We got this one cleaned out. Let's see how fast it clogs. There's already visible pieces of rust getting all caught up in there. Let's see how this thing starts up. Just fine. Well, eventually that'll get all the rust out of the system. Let's go take this thing for another rip. One thing I'm excited about is this thing will be a great yard tractor. Like, I gotta tug that thing around, and it doesn't like steering, and it doesn't like rolling, and this thing won't care with the 4 low. It'll move it, that's for sure. And it's got trailer hitches front and rear, so if I need to move a trailer or just hook up to it, I don't have to like fumble around with anything. think we're actually flexed out now. I don't know for sure, but this tire looks stuffed up into this wheel well. Yeah, we got a little bit of flex going on. Far from the most flexed out, but we got a little bit of tuck and droop over here. A little bit of droop and tuck over here. Look at that. That looks like a good flex rock. Look back onto it. Well, I think I already clogged the fuel filter. Pretty sure that that was the fuel filter getting so clogged it's no longer fuel filtering anymore again. Well, fuel filter is definitely not fuel filtering very well anymore. And on top of that, there is rusty water dripping out of the roll cage. These welds are atrocious. And this cage is rusting from the inside out. What? Nasty. Like, what? I saw it all over the battery and I thought that maybe the battery was like overcharging or something. Nope. The roll cage is dripping. And the fuel filter is not fuel filtering anymore. Maybe that'll help. And I guess my radiator is pissing fluid. Well, I guess we found some issues with this thing, but it drove up a big rock. Well, all right, I washed out the fuel filter again. Amazing how that works. Okay, this is anything but a rally truck. Anything but a rally truck for sure. Even in two-wheel drive, this thing just bobs. Something about 37s and 529s. Yep, it's not happy. I smell coolant. I forgot about the hole in the radiator. She might be a hair worm. Oops. She's a hair worm, and the fuel filter's clogged for the third time in probably 35 minutes of driving. Oh well. I think steam is just coming out of that little pinhole. Ah. There's coolant all over this thing. This thing has had enough for tonight. Yeah, already a ton of crap in this fuel filter. Went ahead and grabbed a new fuel filter. This fuel filter is a ton bigger. It is off a Ford F350, which is actually what this fuel pump is off of. And it is massive compared to the one that's on there. So it'll catch a lot more debris before the flow is inhibited. So I'm gonna go ahead, replace this one with this one, start it up, take it for a little cruise, and see if we can get more than 5 minutes of runtime with a bigger filter. I also got 2 of these so that when this one clogs up, I can replace it. All I can really do for now. If it keeps clogging fuel filters as fast as it has been, I'll go ahead and I'll pull the tank and clean all the rust out of it, but I really don't want to do that. All right, now let's turn the key on and see how she does. Oh, there we go. Now I'm gonna take it for a little bit of a cruise and see if we can get a few more minutes of runtime out of this thing before this massive filter clogs, because it's a ton bigger than the little lawnmower filter that's full of gunk. Starts so much easier when it's got you know, fuel. I also epoxied the radiator, and that very obviously didn't work. So I guess I'll end up putting a radiator in this thing. Let's see how this thing does. Low, low, first gear. Woo, woo. Well, I think this fuel filter's clogged.